What's up, guys and gals, and welcome back to another Division 2 video. If you happen to be new to the channel, then ground and pound that like and subscribe button, and don't forget to turn on post notifications, so that way you know each and every time a video goes live, or a live stream goes up, or vice versa. But anyways, you get the point, right? But anyways, I've heard the ongoing discussion between the differences and which one is actually more viable and better for PvP and then PvE, and we are talking about the BloodSucker talent versus the Unbreakable talent. So first, let's go over the description of both talents, and then we'll go over to some gameplay, more or less emulating and showing what the talents actually do in combat situations, and then we'll actually give our final verdict and opinion, and then also, as a golden nugget, we'll actually go over what the changes are going to be come next update by way of next month, and then actually revisit and actually give our definitive answer on which one will actually be better then. So first things first, let's start off with BloodSucker. As you all know, states that depleting an enemy's armor adds a stack of 20% bonus armor for 20 seconds. Max stack is 5. So in essence, if you have 5 stacks, that's 100% bonus armor. And that bonus armor is dependent on the exact amount of armor you actually have. So for instance, if you have 200k armor, then a complete max stack is going to put you at 400k armor, theoretically, because you get 20% of your total armor as a stack of bonus armor. So at 200k, then that's going to give you 40k just for having one stack. And then stack 5 of those, and then that comes up to 200k. And no, I'm not a math professor, so you can check my math if you want to, but that's essentially it. Now let's go over the Unbreakable talent. Unbreakable, 25% max armor is repaired when your armor is depleted. Armor kits used within the next 5 seconds are not consumed. So this also has a direct correlation of the amount of armor that you have on your character before it is procced. So in this case, you get 25% of your max armor. So going along the same guidelines as before, 200k armor, you're getting 25% of that. If you want to know what 25% of your armor is, then basically just divide your armor by 4. In this case, we are going with the base of 200k, so therefore you'll be getting back 50,000 armor. And once your armor is depleted, that you get that 25%. It doesn't seem like much, especially when there's like a internal cooldown, more or less, but as you can see, the description of Unbreakable versus BloodSucker, Unbreakable states it repairs 25%. So this can have a direct effect if you're using safeguard talents of things of this nature, to where your healing and repairing skills are amplified by other talents. So that is also one thing to keep in mind. Currently, Safeguard is at 150% after a kill. That more or less goes with the repairing and the healing skills. So if you have Safeguard and get a kill, which is situational, then that will amplify that 25% by 150% currently. So therefore, you're getting a much, much larger chunk from Unbreakable. But now let's go to some gameplay of BloodSucker, and then some gameplay of Unbreakable, and then come right back to this discussion. We'll see you guys and gals in a moment. Give me up. You got NPC behind you. That one got cooked already. Another one getting cooked. Oh, you stepped right in the line, blocking shots. Oh, you're good. I'll hit you up. Finished off the other one with a grenade. completely take off my armor. So keep in mind that on both clips, I'm not using any other talent to help boost the effects of BloodSucker or Unbreakable, right? And also keep in mind that these talents are not necessarily dependent on those, but using synergy along with talents such as these, accompanied with either Patience or Safeguard, can also make a difference. But right now, we're just talking about the base values of BloodSucker and Unbreakable. Now, looking at a face value with not having anything to support these talents, then I would have to say, and you can also be definitive just by the clips, that it is more beneficial alone to be using BloodSucker because you get more bang for your buck and can proc multiple procs and stack up to 5 for 20 seconds. And then after 20 seconds of the very first stack, then you are able to keep applying. Each stack has a individual 20-second timer. So when one fades away, then you can still stack on another and consistently can have those 5 stacks as long as there are NPCs or other agents out there in which to take off their armor to proc the Bloodsucker talent, right? So now Unbreakable. Unbreakable alone, with not being fortified by anything other talents such as Safeguard, is very, very minimal at best. I mean, 25%, even let's say if you have 250k armor, 25% of that is still very minimal. So if we are looking at the base value and the base talents alone with no other talents working in synergy with it, then it goes hands down to Bloodsucker. But now, if you take all these other factors into consideration, such as if you are using Safeguard, and then it would have to go to more or less along the lines of Unbreakable, just due to the simple fact of Unbreakable, as you see in its description, is max armor is repaired when your armor is depleted, versus Bloodsucker, it just gives you a stack of bonus armor. So armor on top of what armor you already have. And also keep in mind, let's say all your armor is depleted and you take off, NPCs or players' armor when you have no armor, then that's still dependent on the exact amount of armor you had to begin with. So you're getting that 20% of your total value. So if you have no armor, the proc of Unbreakable, right? Without, having any, Safeguard or anything accompanied with it. So it's fairly even. It's just a 5% difference. Well, if you incorporate those talents such as Safeguard and Patience, then it becomes, the line in between them becomes a little more blurry and a little more situational. Whereas, let's say on a 1v1, that and even if you have Safeguard, then Bloodsucker is going to be dependent on more or less of its base value alone, which is you're only getting 25%. If you have Safeguard on, then you actually have to get a kill in order to proc Safeguard in order to fortify Unbreakable. So a 1v1, yeah, you're going to get an additional 25%, but also it is when it comes to a 1v1, how if someone retreats into cover to, let's say, use their chem launcher, then when it comes to the side of Bloodsucker, even if they have 1 bar of armor back or repaired, and you shoot them in their toenail or their knee or just any part of their body to take that little bit of armor just by that 1 block off, it's going to proc Bloodsucker yet again, so that way you get even an additional armor. So that 20% instantly comes into 40. So if they have like a repairing drone out, and as soon as they get a little bit of armor, you take it off. You don't have to take off their whole entire armor in order to get it to proc. If they just have a little iota, a little essence of armor, and you take it off, it's gonna proc Bloodsucker. So hands down, Bloodsucker is actually more viable alone than Unbreakable is alone by itself. But like I said, if you have Safeguard accompanied with Unbreakable, then that increases that value tremendously. So instead of the 25%, in a sense, you are more or less going to get around 65 to 70% when you have Safeguard active. So that is the way it is currently, right? So if you are using Safeguard with Unbreakable, then make sure you actually get a kill before Unbreakable procs, so that way you get more benefit out of it. In a 1v1 situation, if someone was running Bloodsucker versus the other person that was running Unbreakable, then 9 times out of 10, the Bloodsucker, one with utilizing the Bloodsucker, is actually going to be able to beat out the one with Unbreakable. Because also you have to keep in mind that if they take your armor off with Bloodsucker, they're getting a proc, and then once your armor is depleted, the one using Unbreakable, and they get that 25% back, well, if they shoot off that 25%, then that's going to proc Bloodsucker again. So they're going to get 2 stacks just off your base armor, and then also they're going to get a stack for taking off your procced armor from Unbreakable. So you got to keep that in mind. Things are situational. Now, the changes that are forthcoming on the upcoming update, Bloodsucker lasts for 20 seconds, but in the update it's going to be changed to 10 seconds, and that 20% is going to be 25%, and have a max stack of 6. Alright, so you got to keep that in mind. And then Unbreakable, instead of the 25% of max armor, will be going to 70% max armor, right? So, in the upcoming update, it's going to be crucial and very, very, very viable when accompanying it with Safeguard. Even the changes to Safeguard, that 50% additional boost to healing and repairing skills after a kill. So 50% of 70%, that's going to give you over 100% armor after a kill if you have Unbreakable along with Safeguard. So it's definitely on a 1v1 situation. The new way Unbreakable is becoming, that Unbreakable is going to have the slight advantage and edge, especially if the person is just more or less rushing in and trying to face tank. Now, it is also dependent on the player's skill and how he utilizes his surroundings and basically, his movement, and it's going to be very situational. So one can argue that still one is still better than the other. It is still dependent on the player itself. But if you're looking at a pure number standpoint, you're going to get more benefit from Unbreakable after the update coming next month than what you currently are. There's too many variables along with Unbreakable right now to really make it more viable than utilizing Bloodsucker right now. Right now, Bloodsucker is hands down better than Unbreakable. Now, come the update, then that's going to make Unbreakable more or less more viable than Bloodsucker, but it's still going to be situational. The more NPCs or players you have around you, the more benefit you're going to gain from Bloodsucker. Now, if it's like a 1v2 situation or a 1v1, and one has Unbreakable and the other one don't, and that 70% proc is going to more or less be the deciding factor, especially if the one with Unbreakable can hit all of the shots, right? So, it kind of makes sense. You kind of picking up what I'm putting down. So like I said, in enough rambling, the definitive answer right now, Bloodsucker is better, but after the update, then Unbreakable is going to be better. But you also got to keep in mind there are other fortification talents that, can synergize with these that can make them any stronger. The proc from Unbreakable will have an internal cooldown itself and be dependent on every 60 seconds. So if you shred his armor off and hit your shots and the other one does not hit his shots, and the other one's getting bonus armor from Bloodsucker from both procs, and if you haven't finished him off by the time you get that 70% on bonus armor back, then you have to wait a whole minute before you're able to use Unbreakable again. Versus Bloodsucker, you're going to be able to stack on top of all those stacks after, say, if you're able to stack up, 2 or 3 times, then each stack is going to last 10 seconds. And the more armor he puts on and the more armor you take off, then that's going to give you more procs from Bloodsucker. So it's more or less going to be situational for both and just based on personal preference and playstyle come the new update. But like I said, enough rambling. On the new update, the edge will go to Unbreakable, but concurrently with the way things are until the update, then definitely Bloodsucker has the advantage. But it is an ongoing discussion. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, excuse me, whichever you prefer. I really like Bloodsucker, but yet I'm not going to be biased as far as the changes that are forthcoming and actually, the things that you can implement by using either or talent depending on your playstyle, because I can see both of them being very, very useful. It's becoming of an age that, armor and health is going to play a more important role. Gunfights are going to be, lasting a little bit longer. So these two things are definitely going to play a factor in the upcoming update. And currently, while those are using Berserk, in order to proc Berserk, you have to actually get a kill first. So that is dependent on that. When it comes to these fortification and defensive talents, it's not more or less dependent on getting a kill first. All you simply have to do is take off someone's armor, or your armor has to be depleted. And we all know that if you accompany things like Patience, Safeguard, Chem Launchers, Hive, things of this nature, then you can fortify these talents even more, and they can inevitably be stronger than, using Unstoppable Force, because right now we're not including Berserk, because Berserk is getting, hit pretty much, and the changes to it are going to be requiring 11 offensive attribute Legos. So a lot more people are going to be moving from the Berserk offensive talent and sticking with along the lines of Unstoppable Force. But before Unstoppable Force, I think that's going to make Unbreakable and Bloodsucker the top 2 tier, especially when it comes to things of PvP and even in PvE. When it comes to PvE side, I still say Bloodsucker has the advantage, just because every 10 seconds you can get a proc, and with the plethora of all the NPCs, then you can constantly keep, multiple stacks of bonus armor at all times. It's just more or less situational versus the PvE side of Unbreakable. You have 60 seconds, and then the way NPCs kind of rush you at certain times and corral you, then it'll be very hard to give the edge or any advantage to Unbreakable, just due to the aspect and having that internal cooldown of only can occurring every 60 seconds versus the 10 seconds per stack, and can have a max stack up to 5 currently, and then 6 later on. It's still, you can still have all those stacks simultaneously on at all times, because as soon as you hit the max stack of 6, then by the time you get to 6, the first one is going to be coming off, so it'll going to reduce you to 5, but then you can immediately, take the armor off another NPC or player, or, with the way the medics, heal the NPCs or whatnot, and then can constantly have those stacks on at all times. But that's just my input. This is also an SMG build, utilizing all these talents that I'll be putting up either later today or tomorrow, so stay tuned. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I just thought, I'd put, my opinion out there on the differences of Unbreakable versus the Bloodsucker. And like I said, all things, it just depends on what other talents you have that are synergizing, and also based on personal preference and personal playstyle. So keep all that in mind. Thank you guys so much for the continuous love and support. We'll see you punching later.